out of things to jump off of in Galway.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Awful Takes podcast, episode 46, the first episode of our Halloween horror second annual all-inclusive genre-spanning extravaganza, where we talk about horror movies and their impact. And it's a cool season, you know. I feel like for me, Halloween season, fall season, I don't know, it's the most poignant, you know. You really feel it. Like now it's kind of getting colder in the mornings, you know, and I'm like feeling it. I'm like, all right, this is
Are you feeling it now, Nabahi?
Yes, I am. But welcome, everyone. This is the show where we talk about our awful takes on movies and music, and we waste your guys' time with our own opinion. And I think I sound smarter than I am when I'm actually not.
It insists upon itself.
Yeah. And
sorry, guys.
I don't really know much, yet here I am spreading my misinformation. So feel free to correct me on anything and call me out on my opinions. I welcome it. There's a lot of movie news this week for some random reason. So we're going to break it down and we'll try to get through things. Who knows? This might be a long episode. But okay. If you're here for the review, feel free to skip ahead and let us know what you guys think.
We'll have timestamps, so don't worry, guys.
First bit of movie news kind of came for me out of nowhere. The 28 years later trailer dropped.
The Bone Temple, the sequel that I guess was filmed alongside the first one, which is insane. It's already coming out in January. Hasn't even been a year.
Hasn't been a year
since the 28 years later came out. I'm still trying to process that movie.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Like, we were talking about this movie, and I didn't think we would see something this soon.
Which is why I was so surprised when you told me it was coming out in January. I was like, oh, yeah, snacks. Okay, cool.
Crazy.
I have something to look forward to, especially because January is it's like the time when for some reason the studios dump like all their terrible movies between like January and February. So it's nice for a nice change of pace to have a movie that I'm actually excited for in January.
So here we have this trailer. It right away, you can just see the difference between directors. At least for me, it was so noticeable right away. This doesn't look like 28 years later looked for me. I don't know. I feel like that visual flair looks kind of gone now. At least for me, this is just my reaction. Everything looked a bit more kind of
standard and
formulaic. It didn't really have that lens of a visionary, I guess, behind it. No, not trying to knock the director, Nia DaCosta. I could be wrong. It's just the way this trailer looked. I was just a little let down by the visuals, you know. I felt like it just felt kind of flat. It didn't really jump off the screen at me at any point. But however, the plot is kind of what I'm interested in seeing this trailer. Like, I'm very excited to see the continuation of this story. Like we mentioned in our review, I'm very excited for the characters to kind of have their, you know, progression and seeing the way these new characters interact with the characters from the last story and everything. So overall, I will say the trailer did serve its purpose. It kind of amped me up excitement wise, especially again, like it's coming so soon.
Very quick.
And yeah, it'll be really, really cool to kind of jump back into that world again. And seeing how fast this was kind of put together gives me a lot of hope that they were just like, you know what, just keep the torch running and we're just gonna keep going with it, you know?
Yeah, which is very, very exciting for sure. Visually, I was kind of shocked. Obviously, I doubt it was filmed on iPhones or anything this time, but I think it looked all right for what it was going for. I loved how it still felt really colorful in the same line as like 28 years later was. It definitely looks more cinematic for sure, which I was actually surprised seeing that trailer. I was like, this has more of like a cinematic feel to it, whereas 28 years later had kind of more of like a mockumentary type of feel to it. One thing I'm really excited though to see is something they kind of tease a bit in the trailer is just this whole Bone Temple and everything, and especially to kind of learn more about this doctor. I'm like really, really excited about Ralph Fiennes' character because he was easily for me one of my favorite characters in that movie. So I'm really excited to see see them expand more upon his story. And then obviously the stuff with like that whole ninja zombie gang at the end is really cool to get a few like teaser shots and everything in that trailer. I'm super excited to see what kind of spin she's going to put on that, because for me, I already know that's going to be easily one of my favorite parts about this next film.
Yeah. Interested to see how the translation is going to work with directors in a franchise like this. Obviously, Boyle has his particular flair. He has his particular lens that he attaches to all his movies. And to see someone kind of take the reins with it and now continue it is something that I'm going to be very interested to see how it folds out, you know? Because sometimes when stories kind of jump with directors and things, there's a very finite change in the way the story kind of progresses, you know? And obviously one of the biggest examples is the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, you know? You get these new directors in and
they have a completely different interpretation.
You really can't have a through line through these movies, you know? But granted, this is on a very much smaller scale. And who knows? I mean, I'd have to look again at the credits of 28 Years Later. I don't know if Nia DaCosta was on set, you know, helping assistant director or anything like that. To my knowledge, I don't know that. But if she was, maybe she was picking up a lot of the intricacies and personal,
maybe like a mentor student mentorship for sure.
And maybe she kind of grew from a lot of that, you know, just kind of watching that stuff. But I'd have to look again at the credits. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think also it helps too is like Alex Garland's coming back to write it and then Danny Boyle's producing it. So I think it also really helps that like they're also attached to the project too. And it's not just Nia DaCosta's thing. Whereas like you were kind of mentioning with like the sequel trilogy thing where it was like, oh, each one got full creative control, you know? Like, no, there's very much like, this is very much Danny Boyle and Alex Garland's vision, even though they're getting a different filmmaker for this.
Yeah. Overall, again, I'm excited. It's coming a lot sooner than I thought it would.
Which awesome, because I mean, it's still probably my favorite film of the year, honestly. So yeah.
But again, just the visual style, I felt like we lost a lot, especially just watching this trailer. It looks more generic, a bit more formulaic. But who knows? There could be a lot of surprising things in the movie. But I mean, come on, you watch that first 28 Years trailer, compare it to this one. That looks like something totally unique. It looks like something that, even the way it's edited together is just like, what is this, you know? Yeah. And then with this, I'm just like, it looks kind of just like a generic zombie movie.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, you kind of mentioned a bit in that weapons discussion about how like kind of the trailers kind of are appealing more to like a mainstream audience and everything. And I wonder if it's just they're trying to do that with this movie. You know, it's just trying to kind of appeal to like a wider crowd. So they're kind of just maybe trying to lure people in that maybe aren't too familiar with like 28 Years Later, like you and I are.
Maybe they're trying to sell it because the first one didn't make as much money as they probably were intending. And obviously this second one, a lot more is riding on it, on whether or not we get a third one.
I really hope to God we get a third one. Please. I need to see a third one for this.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But overall, I'm excited. All right. Next bit of movie news. There is something that we've been mentioning, and it's kind of cool. We got a lot more confirmation on what this is and what we're talking about. Me and Wallied have been speculating on, you know, where's this franchise going? And now we kind of have concrete news, which was kind of crazy. So me and Wallied have been talking about this alleged Superman sequel to James Gunn's Superman movie this year. And what it's going to be, where is it going, you know, and out of nowhere, he's just very active on Twitter. He just posts that this sequel is now coming and it has a title. And it's called Man of Tomorrow. And he attached some original artwork with it, which very simply is just Lex Luthor and Superman.
Lex Luthor in a robot bodysuit.
Yeah, in his battle armor suit, which, I mean, comic fans, you already know exactly what that is. And seeing that was very like, oh, okay, it's going to be the continuation of this Lex Superman story.
Yeah.
Then people started asking him questions. Oh, this is Superman 2, things like that. And James Gunn very clearly stated this is actually not Superman 2. Oh. This is the continuation of the story, but this isn't Superman's movie. Apparently, it's just called Man of Tomorrow, which everyone is now assuming this is Lex's movie. Superman's very much prominent in it, and I'm assuming Supergirl will be as well, maybe some of the Justice Gang, things like that. But I guess it's just simply titled Man of Tomorrow. Okay. Which comic fans, Man of Tomorrow is kind of one of Superman's kind of nicknames, like Man of Steel, things like that. Yeah. Last Son of Krypton. But yeah, it's Man of Tomorrow. Has Superman in it, but it's not his main story. Interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, I've never seen that before.
The craziest thing is this movie is already less than 2 years away. He has a release date. It's like July 7th, 2027.
That's like under 2 years away.
Which
that's insane.
If we think about it, this movie's gonna come out before the Batman Part 2.
Yeah. Well, and then also Supergirl next year too. Also, so we have that too. We have 2 movies in the DC universe already, and we're still waiting on Batman Part 2.
Wow.
James Gunn's just on a roll. Like honestly.
So I don't know what it is. Maybe while they were doing that movie. Because one of the critiques I had with it is it did feel a little short. I felt like they could have expanded on some things. Yeah. So maybe the mindset was while they were making that movie of eventually doing like a continuation of the Superman saga is what they call it.
Which I had a feeling they were going to do. So I'm really grateful they're going to expand on it a lot more in this next film, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And crazy. So like I'm assuming in this movie, again, judging by these photos that he posted, Superman and Lex Luthor, I will assume at some point in the movie, they're going to work together to take down some kind of adversary or whatever it is. There's been a lot of speculation on who this adversary is. I wouldn't think it'd be anyone big. Like I know a lot of people are jumping on the Brainiac train, and I love Brainiac. He's like one of my favorite Superman villains. But I don't see them using him as a one-off in a movie like this. Granted, I just kind of see that happening. I see Superman and Lex teaming up and eventually just defeating whatever this adversary is in this movie.
What if it's Doomsday?
Oh my God. I don't see them wasting a big name. Granted, DC has done that before, but more importantly, the MCU had Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh yeah.
And he was very much defeated in that movie and kind of took the fire out of all the excitement. Yeah. Because people very much, just kind of stated like your biggest villain was beaten by Ant-Man and a bunch of ants in this movie. And this is the next big bad. Like, yeah. And I totally agree to that point. I'm like, that was probably not the smartest choice.
Really wasn't.
I don't see them getting Brainiac. Granted, I really want to see Brainiac on the big screen.
Justice League movie
for the first time. Like that would be great to see him. But I would rather save him for, further down the line when maybe a bit more of the characters feel a bit more fleshed out. I guess if I were to guess, I would assume it would be like a smaller end villain, maybe like a Metallo or maybe a Bizarro or something.
Bizarro would be cool because I don't think we've ever gotten a live action Bizarro. Yeah, so that'd be pretty
will
fun.
Say that I've heard people mention this, and this is the one thing I don't want them to do.
Yeah.
Stay away from General Zod. I like General Zod. I'm not trying to knock the character. I love General Zod. He's very intimidating, and it's really cool to see, obviously, another survivor of Krypton and everything.
Yeah.
But it's too soon. We've had General Zod maybe a bit too many times for me personally. Well, at least with
Man of Steel, because that was like the main focus of that movie.
Man of Steel, and then they reused him in The Flash, and I was just like, okay,
God.
like... I
don't even remind me.
I love General Zod, and I even liked Michael Shannon's portrayal of him. He did a great job, and obviously we had Terrence Stamp, rest in peace. But I just don't want to see him followed up again. Like, here we go, General Zod's back. Like, it's just for me as a comic fan, I'm just like, there's so much else you can pull from. And that's what James Gunn is so good at doing. I'd rather see someone that we have not seen before. So I wouldn't put any money on the fact that, you know, we're going to get some big bad villain to just be kind of one-offed in this movie. But Wallied, Man of Tomorrow, what are you thinking of this piece of news? And we're less than 2 years away.
It's exciting. Obviously, again, I loved Superman so much, so I obviously just want to see more from this universe. So it's really exciting. I'm not too familiar with like the Man of Tomorrow storyline and everything, so it'll be very exciting to see like what James Gunn's spin will be on this story. Hearing you kind of mention Lex Luthor and Superman working together, I think is also a very interesting thing because it was something they did kind of tease a little bit of in the most recent Superman film. So that I really want to see what their dynamic and relationship would be like, you know, just expanded more, you know, and if they do have to work together, what that kind of relationship would look like.
Yeah. And eventually granted in this movie, I want to just see more backstory with Lex Luthor. If this does focus on him, that was one of my complaints with Superman. Maybe shine some more light on him, but obviously just, again, let Nicholas Hoult do his thing because he did so great.
Was fantastic in that movie.
And I would love to see, like, that's the main focal point, you know, that would just be really cool. And I think it's cool that, you know, this early on, if we're getting a movie that's from the viewpoint of a villain, that's already something just totally different than what Marvel's
is really
doing.
Fascinating. And also, I mean, Lex Luthor is just such a compelling villain anyways that I feel like you could really just do a whole movie about him, honestly, and it would still probably work in some way.
Yeah.
But James Gunn, obviously, you know, it's exciting that James Gunn's still just making movies with this DC universe and everything.
There is a passion behind it. I think that's what people don't seem to realize is for this guy, like, this is not him going to work. This is his passion. Like, this is what he loves to do. It's his
love of comics and his love of filmmaking, and there's just the two come together really.
And it's like when you're when you're doing that and you can really focus in on it, like, it's just it almost like something else is just driving you. You know, it's not these studio deadlines. It's not these box office results, things like that. You can just tell. I mean, come on, he's writing Creature Commandos. Did anyone think that would be a big success? No. Like, the fact that he's doing all these offshoot kind of things shows that he just has a passion for this stuff. You know?
It's not like he's being forced to come in and just make a movie just because it's like a director for hire thing, you know. He's really just like actually passionate about it, like probably more than he was with like Guardians of the Galaxy, honestly. And when he was at Marvel, it feels like he has a lot more freedom to kind of like do what he wants with DC.
Yeah. All right. Next bit of movie news. This is something that is personal to me.
Okay.
There was a time period in my life, probably like 11 to like 14 or 15. For me, the pinnacle in all storytelling was Call of Duty. Playing their single player campaigns and stuff. It was perfect for me at that age. I got so into it. They had some amazing storyline moments that now, obviously, when you replay them, this is just super over the top Michael Bay kind of storytelling. But man, I mean, who can forget playing Black Ops for the first time and seeing the way that story unfolds, seeing the way the climax of Modern Warfare 2, man, when you're fighting General Shepard and stuff, it is just insane. And it just felt so climactic and everything. So granted, I've been a big Call of Duty fan, not as of recently. Honestly, I kind of dropped Call of Duty over the past 9 or 10 years.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Now we're hearing that Activision is greenlighting a Call of Duty movie. And this movie is going to Paramount, which, God damn it, I'm so mad about that because Paramount just absolutely butchered Halo. So here we are. They're going to be greenlighting this Call of Duty movie, which, granted, it's Call of Duty. I mean, Call of Duty, literally, a lot of its moments and things just borrowed from war movies that did things really, really well. And, you know, they did it in their own way, I guess, but sometimes it was a little over the top and things, which I kind of enjoyed. But that type of storytelling really works in like a video game when it's kind of high adrenaline. You know, you're behind the reins of this character and you feel like you have control over how this story unfolds. And in a way that was kind of true with the sequel to Black Ops. But here we are, this movie's getting greenlit and it's going with Paramount, which already for me is a misstep. But we're finding out more about this news and everything. And it's kind of funny because I've actually remember hearing so much about Steven Spielberg wanted to make this movie. And for those of you who don't know this, and I've known this, I swear, for like the past 15 years, Steven Spielberg is actually one of the biggest directors I know who is very open about his love of video games, particularly first-person shooters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he is.
Wow, I did not know that, actually.
I mean, he has a hand in helping create the Medal of Honor series that was very big back in the day. He loves video games. He is just super adamant about it. Wow. And he wanted to make this Call of Duty movie, but what he wanted full creative vision. He wanted I'm assuming his own team of writers or whatever, and he wanted final cut on how this movie is going to come out. Mm-hmm. The studio didn't like that. So they ultimately rejected his whole thing and were like, you know what? We're going to find someone else to do this. So they got with Paramount, and now the ball's kind of rolling. What a missed opportunity. Activision, you are so stupid. Let me say that first of all. You are so stupid. You had the guy who made Saving Private Ryan, arguably one of the greatest war movies ever made, wanting to make your story and your movie. And he was going to take full control over it, and he was going to do his thing. Granted, Steven Spielberg, I mean, we just got to be honest. He's a little older now. You know, maybe he might not churn out such a great story. But however, why would you turn down one of the greatest filmmakers of all time to get behind one of your biggest franchises of all time? To me, that doesn't make sense. All because you don't want someone else to have full control over your movie? That is so stupid. Wow, this is just such a big misstep when I've heard this news. Like any resemblance of this thing actually being good for me is probably now gone. Granted, they could get a bunch of writers and whoever. I guarantee it won't be anyone big. Guarantee
get Michael Bay.
They're going to get some small, low-level director who probably is just looking to get his name on something. They're going to pay him super cheap just to get this movie made. And I swear it's going to be absolutely awful. But granted, I'll eat my words if it turns out differently. But man, what a misstep. I'm just baffled. And it's again, like he's a fan of video games. He's a fan of these games, you know? And you could have had something that really could have been grown into probably like a big franchise. I mean, that's one of the great things with these, like for instance, the Modern Warfare series, this storyline that unfolds throughout these 3 games, the old ones, not the new ones, was really great. And it kept a lot of fans on board for these games, you know. Granted, Call of Duty, everyone just thinks multiplayer, you know, online shooter, arena type shooting.
That's what I was going to say, because every time I've talked to people about Call of Duty, they never talk about single player campaign. Mm-hmm. It's mostly just they play multiplayer or they play online with their friends.
It's because in the last 6 or 7 years, Call of Duty has dropped a lot of focus on single player storylines. Some of the more recent games actually don't have it at all. They completely
really?
just take it out. Because multiplayer is where you get the majority of your money with all these microtransactions, things like that. No. So it's like, well, what fuels it? People wanting the storyline or people buying, you know, $5, $10 transactions
for a $60 game?
What are we going to put our money into?
70 now.
You know? So now they've dropped these single player campaigns. They're trying to pick them back up, and it just hasn't been working, in my opinion. Okay. But man, that Modern Warfare storyline, there are some iconic moments in all of video games. There's some iconic characters that people have a real attachment to. And honestly, in my opinion, there's a lot you can pull from that I really think could work in a movie. And there's a lot of storylines in there that have that kind of great storytelling, great, characters. And I would love to see that in a movie, but I just feel like, man, we're starting out the gate with us shooting ourselves in the foot, because why would you miss the chance to work with one of, the greatest filmmakers of all time? It really doesn't make sense to me. Wallied, Call of Duty, I know you don't really play it. I know you don't really know too much about it. But I guess, what do you think of this in like a more studio sense of them not wanting to work with Spielberg and just getting Paramount and seeing how it's going to unfold?
Well, them not wanting to work with Spielberg is like saying you don't want to work with Akira Kurosawa on a samurai film. That's how it feels to me with that. But two, I don't really know how a Call of Duty movie could work, because like you kind of mentioned with the story mode stuff, again, I haven't really played it or anything too much. It's just like, that's just every action war film from like the last 20 years. It
actually kind of is, yeah.
I'm just like, what kind of, I guess I would be fascinated to see what spin they take on this. Granted, I don't think they're going to take any spin on it, and it's just going to be, like I mentioned, a generic action war film, but with the Call of Duty name slapped on it. And that's kind of how I mostly just feel about it. It seems like Activision is very greedy, and they really just want full control and advantage of everything, even though that's not the best choice. I wonder what Spielberg's vision, I guess I'm more curious to see what Spielberg's vision would have been like for this, because hearing that he's passionate about video games, and especially like, kind of war games, it's like, and especially too, because he has experience with war stuff. So I'm like, I feel like he would have done a really solid job with it, even if it wasn't like one of his top films or anything like that.
Yeah, it really is a misstep. I mean,
it's very weird.
I'm very curious to see behind the scenes what influenced them to make that decision. Who made that call? I want a name. I want to know exactly what was going through their head when they were like, you know what, Steven Spielberg, we're good. Like, who's the idiot down there?
Who at Activision made that choice?
Like, oh my God. All right. This is going to get me mad. I'm going to go on to the next movie topic. All right. One we've been covering for a bit. Obviously, me and Wallied are big fans. Jordan Peele had his next movie that we've mentioned. Yeah. He had a release date set for next year. It was very kind of secretive, very kind of cryptic, with
like a lot of Jordan Peele stuff usually is.
Which I'm a fan of. I like that kind of unveiling of, what's the project about. That for me is always kind of exciting to kind of speculate,
Especially because we get so much info about movies nowadays that it's nice to just be like very secretive, and then like once you see the movie, it's like, oh,
exactly,
that's what it's just about.
So out of nowhere, news gets dropped that Universal is postponing, or I guess took the release date that was meant for Jordan Peele's movie, and they got rid of his movie. Granted, I don't know if the project is outright canceled. I don't know if
they said it was like delayed indefinitely. That's what I looked into when I saw that.
Which is unfortunate. Obviously, I think we'll hear more news about it and within, the next couple months and everything. But it's kind of crazy. Like, I mean, I swear I thought his project was supposed to come out this year. Then it got delayed. And then now here it is. It's just kind of taken off the release schedule indefinitely.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's going on. I know Jordan Peele is very prominent right now in his production company.
Monkey
I know
Paw,
they kind of face some downsizing stuff, that they had to kind of shrink down the studio a little bit, had to cut some staff and things like that. I do know Monkey Paw was very much trying to get the release of Weapons under their banner, but eventually that didn't happen.
And then he fired like 2 of his managers or something like that also, which is insane.
Yeah. So I think right now there's probably a lot of issues going on with this production company, that maybe releasing a movie and
it's probably not the best time.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of hearing a little bit in that article too, is that they haven't even started like pre-production or anything yet. So I wonder if it's maybe like he had an idea for something, but maybe he just didn't think it was all that interesting and maybe just scrapped it. I don't know. I wonder if he's maybe wanting to change it up, especially because his last few films have been horror thriller. I wonder if he's maybe trying to like try something different, you know? Maybe he is trying not to get into that kind of just making the kind of same film again, you know?
This is me putting my own kind of spin on it, but one thing that I wouldn't be surprised to eventually hear is Jordan Peele seeing the landscape changing right now with horror movies, with the release of Sinners, and now Weapons.
Yep.
I think he's noticing what people are responding to, and maybe he's trying to either go in that same direction, or maybe they kind of jumped ahead of him and maybe made something kind of akin to what he was planning on. And now he's probably trying to be like, you know what? I don't want mine to resemble like a copy or an imitation, you know?
Right.
I mean, granted, that's just my opinion. I just know he's a fan of horror movies in general. So I wouldn't be surprised to eventually hear that he's noticing this shift in the genre happening right now.
I feel like that was kind of one of the fascinating commentaries of like Nope also, you know, which is why I really loved that movie a lot, was like, you know, seeing kind of how like the studio system has been in, you know, the last like few years and everything. I wonder if he's just trying to kind of find something that is like a story worth telling, like Nope was.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, granted, I'm a little upset. I'm a little disappointed just because I've been anticipating his next movie, and just it's been facing kind of production issues, delays. Who knows? I mean, I
hope he's able to get something on the ground for sure at some point.
I hope so. I mean,
I know he's producing a movie that I think comes out this month, that Him or whatever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. It just kind of looks like a Jordan Peele imitation, basically.
Yeah.
They're kind of luring people in with the Jordan Peele name, which I don't really like when studios do that.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see. But maybe we'll find out something in some more interviews in the next couple months. What's kind of going on with him. All right. Last bit of movie news came out on Friday, which kind of just threw me for a loop. Fede Alvarez is saying that he is not going to be directing the Alien Romulus sequel.
Okay.
Kind of crazy.
Has the king returned?
He's still writing. They have the story. It's going to continue with obviously Andy and I forget the character's name. It's going to continue their storyline.
Cool. Okay.
Still, but Fede Alvarez is not going to be directing. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm in the boat of really enjoying Alien Romulus.
Yeah, I really liked it too a lot.
For me, it felt fresh, but also felt respective towards the previous franchises and the other movies. And obviously, I'm still excited. For me, what works is these two characters of Andy and Rain. Sorry, I spaced it.
Rain.
Their storyline. You know, for me, it was a great thing of having an iconic character like Ripley. Obviously, we love Sigourney Weaver and everything. And how do you follow that up? How do you create a character that feels memorable and really works? And I think it was a very smart decision to not create a character to kind of replace that, but kind of pin it on two characters and how they work with each other. Having this android and this, kind of orphan as like a family almost is really, really intriguing. So I'm excited to see this storyline unfold. However, with Fede Alvarez not returning, I am a little worried, kind of similar with the 28 years thing. Are we going to lose a lot of the aspects that I really love about that first movie?
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what name they get. Please, I hope it's someone who has an appreciation and love for this franchise. I'm going to throw it out there. I know it probably won't happen, but if you get Dan Trachtenberg, I think his name is, the guy right now doing all the Predator stuff.
Oh, okay, cool.
That would be pretty cool.
And then maybe we can get like an actual good Alien versus Predator movie.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
I'm going to throw his name out there. That's just right now, if I were to pick someone, man, I feel like that would work pretty good. Obviously, I feel like he loves his franchise a lot. But I'm curious to see who they get, right now. My excitement is a little tempered. I was really looking forward to this next movie. Now I'm unsure a little bit.
We're at a crossroads for sure.
Yeah. Wallied, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I was like, I thought this was kind of more Fede Alvarez's like kind of, thing now after Alien Romulus. And I thought he did a pretty solid job with. So I was really excited to see what he would expand with the sequel, but hearing he's not really attached, but I mean, granted, he's still writing it. So, I mean, there's still that aspect there's Fede Alvarez still there, but I just hope they don't get like Ridley Scott or someone like that to direct the movie. Because I know we were talking about a while back that Ridley Scott was going to produce an Alien prequel. So I wonder if he has his name kind of attached to it in some way, shape, or form. It'd be a little concerning, but I do hope they get somebody that is a little bit more experienced and also who is really passionate about Alien.
Yeah.
I just want to see that. As long as the filmmaker they get is like passionate about the series and the franchise and, they love Alien Romulus and they want to expand on that more, like, count me in for it.
And it shows. That love, anytime you see that, it somehow finds a way to pass through all the corporate studio minutia. And you really do feel it on screen when someone really, you can just tell like that they love this franchise, but we'll have to see. I mean,
okay.
Let's see what name they get.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about it for sure.
Yeah. Especially if it's Ridley Scott.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I shouldn't say bad words. All right. Here we are.
What do we got?
The first horror movie of the
second annual Halloween all-inclusive extravaganza. What do we got, sir?
This was a movie that I was going to recommend last year. And like I said, it kind of just didn't etch it into that top spot, but man, this is one that I really do enjoy.
Okay.
I hear a lot of talk about it. I hear a lot of people praise this movie and everything. So what you hear might be a little bit of a regurgitation of other viewpoints you hear on the internet, but man, I remember seeing the trailers for this movie when it was coming out. It's called The Descent, and the trailers portrayed this kind of cave diving expedition. Exposition. Cave diving expedition, and things go badly. And I remember watching this trailer. I think I was at my cousin's house and it was on TV, and we were all just kind of sitting around, and then this trailer came on, and already the idea of claustrophobia, and there's a point in the trailer you see the cave kind of closing in. This person gets stuck crawling through this, crawl space. And I was like, that is terrifying. And then in the trailer, they showed that that's not all that's going to go wrong. And they showed this kind of monster thing. And I was just like, oh, wow. And I remember my aunt at the time was like, oh, man, that's dumb. She was like, I really liked the kind of cave diving thing. Like that was way more interesting.
That's how I feel with this movie.
And now this monster is coming in. So I guess you can kind of akin this to maybe a movie like we were saying, From Dusk Till Dawn. Now Sinners, you have this story going in one direction, and then out of nowhere, you add that supernatural spin to it. You add that kind of horror aspect to it that really kind of just comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, okay. I can definitely see that switch working for some people, and I could see it not working for other people. But I never saw it when it came out until many, many years later. Like I said, I was a grown adult now, and I was like, you know what? I kind of want to check that out. And I remember putting on this movie and really enjoying it. And I was just like, wow, this is great. And then this switch happens. And for me, I really appreciated the kind of leap that it took with it. Okay. Obviously for me, I'm a horror genre lover. So when it kind of falls into the tropes, when it kind of maybe comes across a little more generic, I'm pretty forgiving of that stuff. If it's done, in a entertaining way. And I felt like
it's done in a unique way for sure.
I felt like this movie really had that. It doesn't feel the need to over explain what these creatures are. They offer little hints and subtleties and things like that.
I really appreciated they didn't explain it because I was a little concerned when they did reveal them. I was like, oh, they're not going to reveal this whole history, are they?
And then they have a very brave choice of kind of creating an adversary out of one of these people. And I was not expecting that. Even from the beginning, when they kind of tease something that's going on, I was just like, huh. And when the story switches and you kind of go into this whole mass hysteria, paranoia, and, you know, in those actions, characters might do something that they will end up regretting, you know, things like that. And man, this movie just unfolds in such a great way. There are so many great scares in this movie. Well, we'll get into it. There's definitely a few. Wallied, I know I've mentioned The Descent to you before. This movie has gained a lot of popularity now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it is. Anytime you see a top horror list, I guarantee you'll probably see this one on there.
Wow.
Maybe not in the top spot, but definitely in
the list
top
somewhere.
10. Yeah.
I had never heard of this movie or anything before you told me about it. So I didn't have too much expectation really going into it. I was a little excited to kind of see what they'd offer with like the claustrophobia part and everything. And I really will say, I dug the first 40 minutes of the film for sure, but I felt like once they revealed the monsters and everything, it really lost me, unfortunately. And we can obviously get into it here with some of my critiques and everything, but it definitely did take me out of like the film a bit for sure, where I felt like I really loved what they were setting up with like the claustrophobia of them being in this cave, and especially with like the main character, Sarah. I was really surprised at the beginning, kind of like with her story of her kind of dealing with loss, but then they kind of just like forget about it, at least in like the second half. And I was kind of hoping they were going to explore that a little bit more in like that first 40 minutes, because they do a pretty solid setup of it when she's like in the hospital. Right
away, I think this movie sets its tone really well with this opening. Very over the top, not shy about anything.
A little choppy at points with the editing.
We have this group of girls. They're rafting down this river and everything. And they're together as a group, and one of them has a husband and daughter who are waiting nearby for them and everything. And you get some subtle hints that obviously these guys they've been friends for a while and everything. I like
how established it was too, for sure. You know, they don't give this like whole introduction of like how they meet and everything. I like that, like you can just get an idea of like their friendship and everything on just this like one beginning sequence, you know. I really appreciate it.
And I think it's important to show that these guys are very much thrill seekers. You know, this is something that they kind of chase towards. This is something that they're not scared of. Again, the story, if it was me in there, this story would never happen because I would never go in a cave.
Neither would I. I would never want to do a cave diving.
It's very entertaining for me to watch this from my comfort of my own chair. And
it's a nice little outside perspective.
I don't have to worry about anything. So, but almost instantly it sets the tone when Sarah gets in a car wreck, and her husband and daughter are just killed. Literally Final Destination style. They're just driving.
I was going to say, I was like, that's some like Final Destination level of like kill right there. I'm like, damn.
And again, I'm not trying to laugh. I mean, it's just for me, it's really done in an over the top kind of way.
It did freak me out for sure. It definitely gave me a good scare.
Yeah. And I just really was like, all right, like this movie's very, very much kind of not campy, but, you know, not afraid to go in maybe a more over the top kind of direction.
Yeah,
you know?
That was really surprising too, for sure. Because I kind of expected a more like grounded story when you told me a little bit about it. So when that like whole sequence happened, I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's this type of movie.
And those are the aspects, like I mentioned, where the horror directors and writers aren't afraid to do that type of stuff. Because I feel like if this was made a little bit more modernly, the husband and daughter would not have died in this way. I guarantee it would have been in a...
You don't think so?
No, I guarantee it would have been in a more heartfelt, definitely dialed back. It would have probably been in a more emotional type way. I think this this director and writer, same guy,
Neil Marshall,
clearly knew, okay, you know what? I'm making a horror movie. I got to set up this plot, let's just go for it. This just for me doesn't feel like how horror movies are made now, where they kind of have that emotional angle.
They have a more drama angle to it.
And they draw that out, This movie very much has those aspects, but it doesn't really dwell on them too much. I think the main focus is really, again, this group of thrill seekers and them one of them having an emotional, motive and things like that. But the plot, getting into this cave, getting into these situations, and they call back to this emotional storyline quite a bit throughout the movie, but I feel like it's done in a way that only a 2000s horror movie could do. I feel like, again, if this was made in the elevated horror era, this might have been dragged out for the first 30 minutes before that family died,
Yeah, I was kind of surprised how quick it was, but I felt like what could have been a lot better was rather than it having being like the husband and the daughter, I felt like it would have been a lot more hard hitting if it was maybe like one of the friends of the friend group, and then like that can be like the more emotional angle of the film, and then maybe show their friendship being a little bit more broken when they go in the cave. I felt like that could have been a lot more of like a compelling kind of drama thing for me.
Yeah. Some of the camera work and everything is a little standard, is a little just kind of by the numbers, but man, I love in the intro, there's this great shot, and for me, it's just really great and really adds a lot of uneasiness and scares and everything. Is this shot of Sarah running through this hospital and these lights are turning off behind her.
That was really freaky. That also like really got to me, and that feeling of like isolation and you feel like trapped. Yeah. That really gave me like a really good scare at that beginning.
And it really was like her kind of just not wanting to accept what eventually she knew she was going to find out. She's very much running. She
breaks down. Exactly. It was really heartbreaking. I was just kind of like came at a flash for me. I was just like, oh, smacks.
That was some great filmmaking. That to me was just kind of a great intro and really just kind of sets up when they do this kind of jump. What's kind of going on? Like, this person's now isolated. They've lost the closest things in their lives. They still have their friends, but you are very much detached. You are very much without, a soul pretty much.
Yeah. You just feel like a ghost everywhere you go.
So it time jump 1 year later. Yeah. We got them talking now. They're kind of reuniting, Sarah and one of, the other girls in the group named Juno.
Oh my God, Juno. I swear. We could get into that in a bit.
And they're reuniting for this spelunking, cave diving thing in these mountains. And obviously these girls, they're all experienced, they've all done this type of stuff before. And I really enjoy that. I like that these guys are not just for the writers, for writing's sake, this is their first time and they're going to make a lot of mistakes and that's going to eventually put them in a dangerous situation. And,
but I feel like that's what's so much more scarier about it is they are experienced, I
just don't like the convenience of that, every time horror movies do that, if the fish out of water thing, and it's just like, it's so convenient the way everything unfolds, I really like that they're experienced and they have a good head on their shoulders.
Yeah. And it's like that kind of thing of like, you're experienced, but anything could go wrong. And I love how they kind of set that up at the beginning.
Yeah.
I would say that whole scene where they're just like having like a conversation, they're just talking. That was probably like one of my favorite scenes in the film, I really loved just like how like, even though they've been gone for like a year and everything, I love that they still come together and it feels like they haven't skipped a beat. I really love when the film can showcase a friendship group like that.
Yeah. And I like they all have, their special attributes to them. They personality wise, they don't really all feel similar.
Yeah, it doesn't just sound like the writer also, which I really appreciate with a movie like this. You could kind of tell which one is a little bit more unique from one another.
Yeah. So they have to hike to this cave entrance. which is like a journey in and of itself.
Yeah.
And then you actually have to go into the cave and everything.
I do wish a lot of the music choices in that sequence, when they are going into the cave and when they're all like driving to like, you know, the destination, I do wish the music was a little bit more like in tone with like what the movie was going for, with maybe something that's a bit more droney or dark ambient. I kind of noticed like the score just felt like kind of like a cinematic score, or like kind of like a temp score you hear in like any other movie, and I just felt like it did take me out of the film a little bit.
I will say that probably would be one of the more positive things that I could see if this movie was made today, is having a unique visual flair to it and having, like you said, unique music choices. I think that's something that horror does very well now.
Yeah, because it does give it that a little bit like that 2000s like dated quality to it at points.
Like at one point they have that, you know, standard green lighting that we would see. They have a lot of the muted colors and things when they're in the forest, this kind of fog, and I'm just like,
yeah, it reminded me a little bit of that elevated horror thing you were talking about a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like every, you know, it has those moments where it kind of looks very kind of dated, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Which I guess kind of gives it that kind of timed quality.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention in the beginning, very early on in the intro, there is a hint that something is going on between Juno and the husband. It's a very quick shot. You blink and you'll miss it. Husband's taking off the helmet of Juno after this kind of crash kind of happens in the river. And it very much shows that he was kind of worried about this girl when that's not his wife, you know? I don't know if you picked up on that.
I did not pick up on that. Okay, wow. No,
So they kind of show that pretty early on. Again, it's very, very fast.
Do you think they were having an affair or something?
Yeah, I think that's what the film is alluding to. So yeah.
I did not pick up on that.
They show that very briefly in the beginning. So when these girls are going up to this mountain, it's this whole journey and them getting pretty much this entrance and going inside of it. Right away when they kind of drop, okay, it's one thing to go to like a cave, then you have to rappel in.
Okay.
Again, this is crazy. I would not do this.
Okay.
But there's this giant drop where they have to rappel in.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really kind of caught me, and I was like, ugh, I didn't like that. When they drop into this little kind of cave, but they're still kind of on the surface of the earth, the lighting and everything, it looks terrible. It looks like some kind of studio.
Oh, like studio lighting,
yeah, studio lighting. And I was just like, I don't like the look of this. And
like when they enter the cave, or do you mean like outside of the cave?
When they rappel in, they're not fully in the cave. There's still the light shining in through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got you. Yeah.
It just looks very, for me, kind of terrible. And then they see Sarah sees like these blood markings on the wall. And I'm just like, the overall look for me just wasn't working.
Yeah, I really didn't like when like the bats showed up, and it like you can very much tell it's like an effect, and that I was just like, oh, that's not very good.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of funny, like the line one of the characters gets where she's like, I'm not Lara Croft Tomb Raider. And I thought she was joking. I'm like, oh, it's a throwaway line, whatever. And then I was like, oh, they weren't kidding in the second half about that. Okay. But anyways, I just thought that was like a really funny line.
So that whole look of everything, I was just like, this is kind of whatever. But when they actually go in the cave and there's pretty much no light and everything, that's where I feel like
or it's like the lighting from like their lamps.
Yeah.
That was really like, I really was taken aback with that. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like they really kind of suck you into that atmosphere of like being in this cave. One thing that I think the film could have used a lot more of is like really taking advantage of the sound design in the film, because you get a little bit of it at points like when they're kind of crawling through the cave. And I just wish like the film kind of took more advantage of that, is using the sound design as like a way to scare you.
I really like when they get into the actual cave, it now kind of feels like it has its own visual style. It feels like it has its own defining kind of footprint.
Yeah, I love the way they use like the red and greens, like especially when they're using like the flare or like some of the greens throughout, or whether it's through like the camera or it's just through like other kind of lighting. I was like, and there's like kind of like a unique kind of like color palette to this.
Definitely watch this movie with all the lights off at night.
Definitely.
Because trust me, when they light that flare, I'm like, holy crap, that thing is bright as...
It is very bright. My whole room was red when I was watching it like at night. I was like, oh.
And we see them get into a lot of, inconvenient situations. Like they're going through this crawling area.
That was really scary.
Yeah, you see Sarah really get, kind of in a panic because she feels like she's getting stuck and everything. There are those situations where you're just like, oh man, this is terrifying. I mean, nowadays we have people a lot braver than me who go on these cave diving expeditions and spelunking and everything, and they have GoPros and all that. And man, you can run into some scary situations where it's like being in that tight of a space. No, I swear. Like I've seen one video online, this guy's like crawling and he's like, this boulder's like huge and there's water kind of at the bottom. And he's like, I want to see what's on the other side. So he gets face down on the ground and he's crawling, and this water is pretty much like all I'm surprised he's not suffocating, and he's barely pulling himself through. And at one point he feels like he gets stuck, and I'm just like, man, that is so terrifying. That's like terrifying in a totally different way than like a serial killer running after you.
Oh yeah. You're like, it's kind of like 127 hours of it. It's like, you could get stuck on this boulder and you can't leave.
Yeah.
And I just wish like the film kind of showed more of that too, because you get maybe like one or two scenes with it. Like obviously that scene with Sarah where she's having like an anxiety attack, that was genuinely anxiety inducing. I was really scared at that point. And I just kind of wish like the film showcased maybe more of that, especially if you are going to introduce like monsters like that, maybe show like them trying to get out and they're maybe trapped under like a small space, That's
one thing I take into account with this movie is probably, I feel like the budget was really not that great. And
I was going to say, because like you mentioned kind of like the stuff with like the studio lighting, you kind of mentioned how there's like some of that generic stuff. And I do wonder if maybe it was like there was a limited budget on this film, maybe there wasn't as much like, full kind of like you could take advantage of everything. But I feel like with a film like this, you can do a lot with limited resources, especially because they are in a cave, and it's really just on these group of friends. I think right there, that's the perfect horror. It's like, how are you going to get out of a cave like that? Like that's a very scary thought to think of.
I think this really could have benefited probably from a more extensive budget. I feel like, because this whole cave is built on probably like a soundstage somewhere,
probably in like a studio or something like that, like a soundstage.
There's probably only so many ways you can kind of film this thing before it kind of starts to look the same
or like repetitive. Sure. Yeah.
So I will say I appreciate those sequences when they happen, but like Wallied, this movie probably could have had a bit more of those situations, where you really have to think on your feet.
Especially because they are so experienced too, just to see how they would react. I think it's really interesting to me,
and it's crazy, like seeing the way this whole thing unfolds. You see them make mistakes. You see them getting pushed to the limits of what they can do. I swear at one point where one of them's like climbing on the roof and they have to set these cams for everyone else to go across.
Oh my God, my God. The intensity and dread of that scene definitely also like really got to me too. And especially when like Juno's like the last one and she's like, no, we got to take that,
Yeah. So throughout kind of that first little area with the cave and everything, they are throwing hints at you that something else is happening. Something else is there. There are some visual signs that you can pick up on, which I like. I enjoy that in movies. Again, I kind of mentioned like with Halloween and stuff, seeing a killer, but he's in the background. He's not full focus, like center frame. There he is. You kind of have to look for that stuff. Yeah,
which makes it more fun to rewatch also.
Yeah, and this movie has some of those moments. So already you're kind of expecting something. But one of the things that you see, and I really like the reveal of this kind of monster and everything. Well, at least at first, it shows it like drinking water, you know, and it shows it like one of them had kind of stumbled upon something that they weren't supposed to see. This thing's like drinking water, and it shows it from that perspective. You hear the noise, like this thing's very clearly drinking water, but it's this shadow, you know?
Yeah.
And then one of the girls shines the light on it, and very quickly you see it, and then it kind of runs away.
Yeah. My guess for sure when they revealed that, and I was a little excited, was like, because they give a little hint at the beginning of like, oh, you know, like one of the symptoms and side effects of being in a cave is like hallucinations. And so I thought when they showed it from Sarah's perspective, I was like, oh, smacks, is she imagining like a monster or something like that? And like, you just can't see it or anything. Like, that's really scary. So yeah, I was like, oh, okay, that's really scary. And then they reveal like there's like a whole army of them or something. And I was just like, oh, that kind of took me out. And I was just like, oh, it's not that scary. It just feels like kind of like action horror type of thing. It just felt kind of weird to me. And I was like, I felt like it would have been a lot better if it was maybe like all in Sarah's head, especially if from the beginning of like when you see like she's still going through like that grief process, especially when it's like a year later.
Yeah.
I felt like it maybe could have shown like she still has this like interpersonal demon to fight.
Yeah. This movie for me has a lot of great jump scares. Obviously the first reveal, they have this camera, night vision kind of footage. It shows the characters and everything, and then out of nowhere it kind of pans over and you see this thing kind of standing.
I was
behind.
like, whoa, what the?
That really made me jump, and that really freaked me out. And then later on there's another jump scare. I swear I've seen this movie at least 3 times now. Okay. And now I was rewatching it for this review. The camera, they're like, oh, something's down there or whatever. It pans over, shows this hallway, pans back to the characters. One of the characters goes down the hallway, does the slow pan, and again, nothing. And then pans back to one of the other characters. Then finally it pans back, and lo and behold, this thing jumps out of nowhere. And I totally forgot that was going to happen. And each time I was expecting it. Every time it panned over, I was like, great, they're going to show it. Didn't happen. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I guess I kind of forgot. And then it did it again. I was like, okay, now they're really not going to show it. I was like, these guys are having a fun time. And then when it finally happened, I was like, how did they get me with that? And I've seen this movie.
Hey, that's the sign of a good scare, though. For sure. I know it definitely got to me when I saw it.
I love how this movie does that. It has those jump scares that again, they feel earned in this situation. Obviously, these girls are in these caves and everything. It's super dark. You don't have full grasp of all your senses, you know?
Exactly,
so it's gonna unfold like that. It's not like the jump scares now where sound effects played and it's the best friend scaring the person.
There was one scene like that in this film for sure. Yeah. That definitely was like, oh, you kind of just ruined a little bit of the horror there. But yeah.
But seeing these monsters and everything, there's a viewpoint that I guess I don't really see, but some people really kind of take away with this movie.
Oh, what's that?
Is that the villains, I guess, kind of like similar to I Am Legend, are the heroes. You know, these group of creatures and everything, they live down in these caves and everything. That's their home. Here, these people are coming into these creatures' homes and literally just massacring a whole lot of them. One of them is just, going at it with this axe and everything. And they have no kind of guess as to why, for them, these creatures, it feels kind of aimless as to why this would happen. I've seen that viewpoint taken on this movie.
Interesting.
I don't 100% agree with it because I remember these creatures, they go out at night, they drag people down in there. There's all these bones and everything.
Yeah.
So very clearly they are murdering and killing a bunch of people. I mean, obviously in the beginning, they totally kill one of the friends. and start ripping her apart to shreds and everything.
God, that was it's kind of sad. I was like, dang.
It was crazy. And oh man, that scene where she's lying on her back and she's like filming one of it and she's trying to stay quiet. And you just see them.
Yeah, I really leaned into. I love the extreme close-up shot of her, like with the camcorder, and she's obviously trying not to like make too much noise. Like that was. I will definitely say that definitely got to me a little bit for sure.
Yeah, and I love the design of these creatures. They really do seem like, at least I think this is what it's portraying, is humans who got lost in these caves and basically probably learned and evolved on how to survive down in them, you know, because they mention all this climbing equipment is hundreds of years old, you know, these things. Like for instance, that thing she hooks up to, you know, when they're climbing on the roof, and one of them's like, this climbing equipment no one uses anymore. Like this is basically nothing, you know. But that was the most recent stuff that they had found down there. Same thing with that headlamp and everything. Right, very old, kind of dated stuff. And I like that they hint that these are actual, you know, people, you know, who have basically evolved and have learned how to survive down in these caves, you know. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. I like that angle, but I like that they don't go fully into that. They don't over explain it, you know?
Yeah, I didn't look too much into that. That's kind of interesting. Yeah. Because I just saw it more as like, oh, they're just like goblins that have been there for thousands of years or something like that. That's how I at least took it. So that's kind of an interesting perspective to look on it. Yeah. For sure.
There's a lot of great parts in this. Like there a lot of gross parts too. There's at one point Sarah falls in like this pool of blood and everything or whatever it is. And there's all these bones everywhere. And she barely escapes, crawls out of it. And she's just laying there. And one of them like basically is crawling like right near her. And she just lays completely still to hopefully avoid this thing.
One of the ones that scared me was when like one of the characters, they're like rushing to get out of there because they see like kind of a light, but it's not a light. It's like the rock. And then she falls into like one of the areas and she like breaks her leg. Yeah. I think for me, that was probably the scariest scene in like the entire film for me personally, just because it's like, you're kind of helpless in that situation. You know, the way they're trying to like fix her leg and then they're like trying to carry her. Like that is genuinely terrifying. And the way they show like the open wound was really disturbing, you know? And I just, for me, I guess personally also, I do wish like the film showcased more of that, you know, like even though they're experienced, they might break a bone or two, you know, like that's really terrifying.
It's one of the things that grounds it in a great way to where, again, like you see these action movies and everything, and it's like, put yourself into one of those scenarios and just imagine you like simply just pulling a muscle. You're not going to be running like these action stars. You're not going to be defying all odds in a moment like that. And I just like a very simple falling, breaking a leg. You really, that could be life or death now, you know, now that you're in this situation. And that is terrifying. Imagine the worst situation and you have a broken leg, you know?
Yeah. Especially in a cave that you don't know anything about also, you know?
And that was always one of my favorite things in watching reality shows or something. Like, for instance, like watching Survivor Man. I remember when one of his shows, he was like, you know what, in this, I'm going to simulate a broken arm. I'm going to have my arm kind of wrapped in like a simple cast, you know, kind of a splint to just hold it. And he's like, I'm going to try to survive because in situations like this, we imagine ourselves in perfect health, in the best shape. Now let's take one of these things away and see how I can really adapt in this situation, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I wish the film like explored that a little bit more for me personally.
For me, it's just enough because in horror movies and things like that, I really don't need too much into delving into the realism, you know? For me, those are the best horror movies when they have like The Thing, you know, it has the realism of these, you know, scientists and stuff at this outpost. And past that, you know, these guys are reacting and stuff in a very human, natural way to this external alien force, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Same thing with this movie. Like when they throw these monsters into it, I'm like, perfect. Like that's exactly what I feel like horror should be. Horror should be that blending of obviously the real world kind of drama and things like that.
Yeah.
And having the, I guess, kind of balls to throw like a monster or something into that. Like most directors and filmmakers, I feel like would be like, I feel like audiences could kind of check out at that point, or they might be like, all right, it's not based in realism and things like that. I like it how horror directors and stuff are like, you know what? This could be the dropping off point for a lot of viewers and things like that, but I'm still going to do it because it gives it, that kind of unique spin to it, because
sure. Yeah.
Like we mentioned with the cave diving thing like that, there's a lot of intrigue in that. Like naturally, I'm super intrigued by that. If you tell anyone, oh, there's this horror movie and these guys, they go into a cave and they run into situations where they're, put in life or death. There's a lot of intrigue, and naturally, a lot of people will go to watch that.
Right?
Throw a monster into it. Okay, that's a ballsy choice because you really had me at cave diving, spelunking, and now you throw this monster at me. It's like, that's a brave choice, Like
it is a brave choice.
I'll give this director that.
But I feel like for me personally, I feel like if they leaned more into like the hallucination like side of the film, or maybe showcasing more of like the side effects of going through a cave, I felt like maybe if it was just even her hallucinating a monster, maybe she's like killing the monsters, but she doesn't realize that she's actually killing her friends. I felt like that would have been a lot more horrifying and maybe a lot more terrifying.
I think that leans into what a lot of people do have an issue with horror is the most scary thing that people can ever experience is the horrors of another person,
Yeah, right.
And I feel like a lot of people say that and a lot of people think that. However, again, this is something that's otherworldly. It doesn't exist. Granted, a situation like that would never exist. And I think that's, for me, I love that movies answer those questions. Movies feel, compelled to push the boundaries of what human life can experience, because at the end of the day, people killing each other, things like that. You can watch real crime documentaries. You can watch, just turn on the news. You're going to hear a lot about that stuff. Of course.
I mean, yeah, right.
And granted, for me, like, I don't mind that, but I feel like, especially in filmmaking and things like that, that really is sometimes just a kind of, I feel like a hindrance, I feel like when, especially in horror, I love when they have those otherworldly things, at least to an extent. Sometimes you can blend it very well with kind of real life and everything, like the Babadook, like we mentioned.
Yeah, right.
But again, the most kind of outlandish thing is to take something that doesn't exist and really kind of convince you and make you think, this could, who knows? You've never been that far down into a cave, the things like that. It's like, oh, okay. That's kind of scary because in a situation like that, what would you do?
Right. And I felt like if they maybe showcase maybe like one monster, because they kind of defeat the monsters like really easily, like in the beginning and everything. And I was kind of like, I kind of wish they maybe put up a little bit more of a fight. Maybe have like just one cave monster there, like see kind of like what this monster can do, like what kind of things can it have over like the human characters. I think that was maybe something that I felt like if you wanted to maybe showcase monsters more, is maybe just have one monster be like the focus, kind of like with maybe like The Thing or something like that.
I think this movie does the best of showing that both of these, creatures, humans, and whatever these monsters are doing the same thing. They're fighting for survival, and it's not going to be a very clear winner and things like that over the other. I like, and that maybe lends more to the fact of what people are saying, how these guys have learned how to survive. They've learned how to live, to them, this is their life. They're in this cave and everything.
Yeah.
Now you have these people coming in and they're actively killing, some of their
tribe,
community, whatever. Yeah. And I guess I like that, it shows that they're being killed and things like that. Cause it does kind of show you that both of these things are just fighting for survival. And that's what anyone would do in those situations. You're just trying to survive and you're going to do it by whatever means you find necessary. Okay. And I love the scene how it blurs that line a little bit when Juno killing this thing, and then out of nowhere she just on instinct turns and kills her friend, and is like,
and I guess that's kind of where I got that idea of where I was like, oh, maybe it could be like a hallucination thing where she actually maybe is killing her friends, you know, just because I was like, oh, that seems like something they kind of would have set up if that was the case, you know. Maybe she's just so like in her own space of like she just thinks like everything is a monster.
Would you feel like that wouldn't have the kind of gravitas to really commit to the idea, though? Do you feel like maybe that might kind of shorthand the overall ending, not ending of the movie, but shorthand how much you put into it, you know? Because we've talked about it in movies before where you kind of ride that line of, do I want to commit to this, or do I kind of want to, you know, go, I'll hint at it, but I'm not going to go full in, you know?
Yeah.
Do you think that might have that kind of same kind of effect that we kind of mention when we talk about movies?
Right. I feel like it might have because the weird thing is like, if it is a survival story, you know, obviously they're all trying to get out, you know, and they're all kind of fending for themselves. I feel like it would have leaned more into that survival aspect of the film that is really like messed up. You know, so I kind of maybe saw it more as like that, you know, and especially when Juno reveals they've never even been in the cave before, and she's obviously like super egotistical. She's kind of in her own head, and like you kind of mentioned with the fair thing, it's maybe just seeing like just somebody who's such a narcissist and maybe just leaning more into that and like taking advantage of like she's just kind of fending for herself at that point. She doesn't really care about her friends or anything at that point. And she really like put her friends at risk, and like her friends' life's at risk. You know what I mean?
Maybe I can see what you're saying. If this movie maybe kind of blended both, maybe a little bit more. You know, maybe kind of hinted at that maybe this could all be like a hallucination or whatever. I wouldn't see myself minding that too much, but I really feel like it could ride that line that we kind of mentioned of this director is kind of scared. This director is kind of scared to commit to one idea too much, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if he was maybe trying to blend the two and two together, but I felt like it could have maybe been a little bit more seamless for me personally.
Yeah, I think it would, at the end, if that movie was made, I feel like we would be having a different conversation of like, this director really didn't commit to one idea too much. He kind of commits to this monster idea, but he doesn't go all the way with it. He kind of seemed maybe intimidated of really connecting to that storyline, you know?
Maybe.
Because we mention that in movies all the time of like, I feel like you were just kind of nervous. You didn't really have like a set idea. So you kind of figured, I'll just kind of do both. And I'll just kind of,
especially like when it shifts into like an action film, it feels like the tone just changes so drastically. And it's like, for me personally, it was like really jarring when you get these like action sequences, and I don't really think like the choreograph was all that great. Like, it's shot like a Paul Greengrass, like Paul W.S. Anderson type of movie where it's like shaking and it's like cutting every like 2 seconds. And I really don't like that. And again, I can understand if it maybe has like a limited budget, like we mentioned. But it really took me out of it. And it felt like kind of silly, especially when they showed it like 2 or 3 more times with like the action sequences.
It has a lot of, you know, great moments. It has a lot of great scares. And I think for me, I really like how this movie commits to this whole monster thing. For me, that for me is a lot of the intrigue. When you see these monsters come up on screen and everything, it really just throws this kind of unknown force at you, you know, and seeing how characters who are very experienced in these situations, and more than likely they can kind of come out on top. Now you have a situation that none of them have experienced. How are they going to come out on top? You know, to me, that is the premise of like a great story and a great movie. And you want to see it unfold. You want to see if they make it out of it, you know, where if it is just this cave diving kind of thing, I feel like you would really need to dial a lot of it back and really kind of base it more in reality. And even then, if it was super based in reality and maybe you had these monsters that had these, you know, they were hallucinations or whatever, I don't know if those would really work together all that well.
I'd be very curious to kind of see how this filmmaker, though, would maybe take that on, if he were to kind of make that decision of like maybe grounding it a lot more and maybe showing the monsters as a hallucination. I really would like to see like what his spin would have been on that.
To me, that sounds more like the kind of elevated horror that we kind of see nowadays or have seen over the past 10 years. It really sounds like that would be something that would come out in that time period, Yeah. And I think, again, to me, that just kind of speaks to more of a director who maybe hates horror. And
do you think it's like a deconstruction of it, maybe?
It's not a deconstruction, but it's just like you're almost like kind of scared of it. And you're like, you know what? I don't want to do that stuff because it's kind of, I don't know how to go about it, because I kind of attribute that a lot to Eggers when he's in his interviews and he's like, you know what's scary? Well, you know what's not scary is showing the villain, showing the monster. What's scary is the lights are off and you think a monster's in there. And it's like, you're kind of just admitting that you're scared of showing this monster and you don't know how to do it. And so you'd rather not show it. And it's like,
I guess it's a horror thing within itself, right?
Well, it's like you're the director, you're the visionary. Yeah. Find out how to do it. Find out how to do it in a convincing way. Find out how to do it in a way that's going to make me, get interested into it. And I feel like this movie does that because when you see these monsters and everything, there is intrigue. Like even just the thought that these could be people, totally removed from society and everything. And I'm like, that's interesting. Seeing that they're blind and everything, I'm like, that's interesting too.
That's also kind of scary because they use sound also. Yeah. And that's also why I was like, when I said earlier, I was like, I wish they kind of used the sound design more to their advantage, and maybe showed like maybe the monster's perspective and like how they kind of see and not view the world, but kind of how they see and how they're able to like track these, track the humans. I wish like the film showed that more.
Yeah. And seeing all these bones and everything, it really does kind of give you those ideas of like, wait, what is this?
Yeah, I guess there's like a bit of an implication for sure. And that definitely like did get to me a little bit for sure. When you see like the pile of bones, it's like, how long have those been there? Yeah.
But one thing this movie very actively chooses to do is you are stuck in the perspective of these women in this cave, that's something that for me, you really need to do when you're doing a horror kind of movie like this. Don't break illusion. Don't show me. Don't cut away to these monsters talking to each other or something.
Maybe not like talking, but definitely just more like a first POV of like how they're seeing or not seeing, but just how like they use sound to their advantage,
I feel like I lose kind of, it kind of suspends my disbelief just maybe a little bit when you do that type of stuff in horror movies. Like, because I know that was one of the things in like that I hated in Insidious. It shows like these characters, dealing with this thing, and out of nowhere it cuts to like full view, fully lit camera point of view. There's your monster, and it shows him doing something. I was just like, that was dumb.
Oh yeah, ooh, that's not good.
So I don't know. I think. I love it when horror movies really just kind of stick with that limited point of view, and even then, if you kind of jump around to different points of view or whatever, it's never the main monster, that stuff is always best. I mean, figure filmmaking 101, Jaws, they very much stuck with, no, you are with the characters and you're seeing the point of view of them. They don't know when the shark's going to show up. For all they know, it's going to show up at the least expected time. And there's a lot of kind of paranoia in waiting for that reveal because you don't know when it's going to happen. Neither do your main characters. They don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One thing too that I really loved that I think really got to me was when Sarah sees her friend and her throat is all slit. I think that for me also was probably the second most terrifying scene in the film, where she's just having this like heartfelt one-on-one with her, and then she gives her the key obviously, and then I love this like shot of where it's just like a full shot and you just see it from like a distance of like her basically like having to like kill her friend. That was really heartbreaking. That was like a really heartbreaking sequence, and it definitely like I felt like really made the kill even more hard hitting for sure for me.
We get to a point where the movie for me pulls it off, but I could see how maybe, all right, this is very typically, obviously, just kind of a movie, is the kind of reveal of Sarah getting back at Juno over what has happened.
I honestly don't blame her though. And
I liked it.
And I actually was like, I appreciated that they really like kind of showed that. I just wish they had a little bit more time together throughout the film. I wish they maybe had a few more conversational scenes, but when she does that to like her leg, I was like, hell yeah, that's great. I love that.
And I do like how it shows them separated and shows how they're going about this whole survival situation. One basically turns into a killing machine.
I know, that was really surprising, but I guess it kind of showcases how grief can kind of mess someone up, you know?
And the other one literally is trying to just get out of it, you know, in the safest way possible, hiding, you know, things like that. And then when they come back together, one has the upper hand. You know?
That was definitely for sure like one of my favorite aspects about like the second half. Yeah. I liked seeing that, even though I do kind of wish they were a little bit more together in the middle portion. It was really cool to see like their different perspectives.
Yeah. And that was a great payoff. I feel like when it reveals that she has that, you know, key and she now knows what was going on behind her back with, you know, her husband and everything. Yeah, it adds kind of a new spin onto the grief that you had been going through. And I really enjoyed that. So she kills her and everything, kind of, basically leaves her for death. And then as goes through this whole kind of journey back to the surface, you know?
Yeah.
I like how in these caves things, they kind of alludes that there is another exit, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Because their way in was blocked off. I do like the whole trying to find out where the wind is coming from, things like that. Very, very cool way to have these.
Very subtle, kind of surprisingly. A little bit.
And then she kind of wakes up and goes through this, like, I love the shots, like these pile of bones and everything. And she's basically just crawling out towards the light. And
she's almost like a creature of her own.
Yeah.
Maybe I looked a little too much into that, but you know.
And she breaks out and she makes it all the way back and everything. And we'll get into this kind of split ending kind of thing. Goes to the car and everything, drives off and has this kind of moment of, you made it, you know?
Yeah.
You are the survivor of this whole situation. It's like, how do you even begin to process that? And immediately shows this kind of ghost monster in the car with her. And then the movie
just ends abruptly. It felt a little like, oh, wait, that's it? That's
so we'll talk about it. There's two endings. So there's this
is there two
ending.
Endings?
Yeah, there's this US release and then there's the UK version.
Oh.
So in the UK version, after that ghost kind of pops up, she wakes up and she's still in the cave and she's actually not escaped. She's stuck down there. And in the US version, I guess we like a more kind of hopeful ending. So they kind of cut that all out. But granted, I still feel like the popping up of this ghost, at least for me, still hints that was a dream, you know, her escaping and everything. When I saw that ghost and everything, I was like, oh, so she didn't make it out. At least that was my point of view. But I guess reading kind of a lot of the online reviews and everything, they thought that, oh, she made it out and she lives with this kind of demon over her shoulder type thing. Okay. But again, for me, seeing this ghost and everything, and even then, the kind of convenient way she does make it out, she crawls out of this spot in the ground, makes it back to her car, drives away. You know, I was just like, that felt too convenient. And I was just gonna say, kind of dreamlike.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I felt like if it would have ended with her just getting out and then like her kind of like looking around her surroundings, I think that would have been like a better ending, because then like that you can kind of like interpret whether or not she actually is in like a dream state or not, you know? I think what surprised me too is like she was about to die in like the car crash. This truck comes out of nowhere, but then it like kind of swerves. I don't know how to really take this ending. It really just felt like it was just like came out of nowhere for me. I guess I'm still trying to process it for myself, but I would say I'm kind of mixed on it, honestly.
I think the car thing, the truck was probably hinting at the way her family died, of like
Right.
It
felt like I was almost thinking like, it was like a full circle kind of moment at that point.
Of just like, you made it past this whole thing, yet nature can still run its course and take you out at any time. You know?
Yeah. Final destination type of thing.
I don't mind the ending because I really thought of it as like, she's still stuck in the cave, you know,
really?
Just because, again, the shot of her ghost crawling out with the bones, the way the light's coming down, the ghost, the way she finds the car, the way she drives off. I was just like, this feels too good to be true. And then now seeing the UK ending and it's not true and she still is in the cave, I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
so that was the director's intention.
Okay. Yeah, because I felt like if I saw the UK ending, I felt like I would have had a bit more of a concrete answer of how I felt.
And that's the thing. While he was shooting this whole escape and everything, it feels unnatural and it feels too convenient. So I think that was very deliberate as to why it looked like that and why I kind of walked away with the feeling of, this has to be fake. And then seeing the ghost, I was like, oh, okay, so it was fake, you know?
Yeah. Why did they cut that ending out? That's so silly.
US audiences are very weird.
I don't understand why they would do that. I feel like I'm kind of like a little cheated now with that. Yeah. You know, I'm like, oh, that was the actual ending. I didn't even see that.
Yeah. Overall, I enjoy this movie. I would say I probably would have it in like a top 20 horror movies. Okay. This is not like top, 10, nothing crazy. Okay. But man, this movie is really enjoyable. I was surprised to watch it, 15 years after it came out. And I really got a lot out of it. I was like, wow, I was surprised how good it was. Yeah. Just because for me, that 2000 horrors era,
seems to be in a very strange spot of just kind of like experimenting, but also kind of feeling like the studio type of filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
Overall, I definitely walk away giving this a solid like 8 out of 10. It's entertaining. It has a lot of great, scares. Man, some of the jump scares really got to me. I like the designs of the monsters and everything. And I love it so much in horror movies when you blend reality with the non-reality elements, that for me, again, that's hard. That's hard to do. It's hard to convince audiences of something that doesn't exist, and that is a very big undertaking and probably one of the most challenging things as a filmmaker. I feel like when you remove supernatural elements and you kind of hint at them, but don't go fully into them, I feel like you're just kind of scared and you don't want to be labeled as like a horror movie and you want to be kind of, oh, this is horror, but it's not like you haven't seen. And it's like, you're just removing the element and you think that it's something new when it's like, all you need to do is turn the light on a little bit more, show us the monster, and you're just like any other horror movie,
Sure, yeah.
Again, that's just my opinion. Okay. But man, I enjoy this movie. I really recommend it if you haven't seen it. And definitely when you're done, watch that UK ending.
No, I'll have to look into that.
I should have told you about it.
I know. I was like, oh, smacks. I did not know there was another alternate ending for this, so, okay. Overall for me, I would say this was pretty decent. A lot of things I did enjoy about it. I really loved Sarah's characters. Juno especially, man, what an unlikable, terrible character she is. I really love some of the scares in it, especially in the first 40 minutes. I definitely just wish, for me, I just felt like there was a lot of potential and I felt like you could have taken some things a lot more farther, whether it's with the hallucinations or maybe just showcasing, maybe just having one monster there instead of like multiple, and seeing how they kind of are able to work as a team, as to maybe like get out of the situation. But I would say overall, I had a pretty solid time with it. They definitely got me at some points, especially the scene where she breaks her leg was like a pretty terrifying feeling. I don't know if I'd really watch it again personally, but I definitely would recommend it to you guys to check out, especially if you don't know anything about it. I really just recommend just kind of going into it, not really knowing too much, because I feel like it will kind of be able to tell you, especially when they kind of shifted in the second half. I would just say for me personally, I wasn't too big of a fan of like the action kind of stuff in the film, and it just the action sequences just were kind of poor to me, unfortunately. But I would say overall, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10 personally.
Nice.
Definitely some things I enjoyed. Sarah as a character I thought was really compelling and interesting. And definitely the ending did leave me a bit confused and just kind of like mixed. But I'll definitely check out that UK ending for sure and kind of see how I feel a little bit more now with that in mind. But yeah, I would say overall I'm at a 6 out of 10.
So yeah, I mean, check it out if you haven't seen it. Let us know what you guys think. There is a sequel, which is not good.
Okay.
It has the aliens approach of Sarah returning to the cave now with people.
Oh, she returns to the cave?
And they're trying to hunt these monsters. Very Aliens to Alien kind of story sequel.
But not as good as Aliens.
Not as good. And the director and writer dismissed that second movie because he had no kind of hand in it. So I guarantee back in the day they were trying to spin this off into like a franchise, obviously with all the other horror franchises that were happening at the time.
Dissenting. or instead of they just put Descent for the fourth one.
I don't see us ever talking about that movie, but who knows?
Okay.
So if you guys want to check that sequel out, check it out.
Okay. All right.
All right, Wallied, what are we talking about next time?
Okay, so same boat as you. This was another film I was going to recommend last year, but I just didn't get a chance to because obviously I went to go work on set, things like that. But this is a film that I would say it leans a lot more into the comedic side of horror. And I would say maybe even fantasy direction. It's more of like Lovecraftian, you could say. But the things they're able to pull off with this film are kind of insane considering the budget was like under $10,000. But I do really like this film a lot. I don't think it's like perfect or anything, but it's a film I do really enjoy watching. So we're talking about a film called Lake Michigan Monster. It's from 2018. It's from a filmmaker named Ryland Tooze is his name. He's also the main actor in it. And he also, I believe, wrote the film too. But it definitely is like a mix of like a kind of like 60s, 70s B horror film mixed in with like kind of like a fantasy like monster element to it. And it definitely is. I think it's pretty hilarious. There's definitely a lot about it that I think is very fascinating and that I actually would just really like to get into. It's very short too. It's only like under 80 minutes. It's like 78 minutes. But it's one I've been thinking about a lot. And especially now with their more recent Hundreds of Beavers film, I feel like this film definitely doesn't get enough attention. And I would definitely like to just shine some light on it.
Nice.
So yeah, that's what we're going to discuss next episode. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled for it, really just check it out. It should be free on Tubi. It's free in a lot of places also actually too. So that's kind of the nice thing with recommending this movie.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. That is it for us. Let us know what you guys think of all these recommendations. Thank you guys for subscribing and everything. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, we're at 67 as we're recording, so we're getting close.
It's blowing my mind.
Yeah, really, thank you all for sitting through our discussions.
Yeah, thank you all 60 of you because 8 of you are my other accounts. I appreciate it.
10 of you are my burner phones.
Okay, there we go. But yeah, that's it for us.
All right, good night.
We'll see you on the next one.